and once again welcoming Dr. Christine Silverstein. Dr. Christine, welcome back, and how are you?
I am doing very well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you for inviting me back.
Yeah, and thank you for coming back. Today's going to be part 2 of our discussion.
Yes.
A few weeks ago, we had part 1 of a discussion that's going to continue on for 2 broadcasts. Today, we're going to continue with part 2. It's going to get a bit more in depth from what I understand.
Yes.
So that should be interesting. But also, we're broadcasting live on Facebook.
Yes.
So that'll be great for people that follow you and follow us as well. We welcome you if you're watching. Again, our guest is Dr. Christine Silverstein. She's the director at the Summit Center for Ideal Performance. Dr. Christine, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. It's people that may not have heard you on our radio shows or saw part 1 yet. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yes, I'm a peak performance coach, a clinical hypnotherapist, and also a registered nurse, and I focus on behavioral modification. And I work in all areas of health and wellness, athletics, performing arts, business, and education, helping people to reach their peak performances in those areas.
Right. And now, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing it over 22 years.
Yeah, and you've had some, you work with a whole wide range of different people we're talking about, because, you know, you do help people with, in terms of fertility.
Yes.
You help, sports performance, you help professionals, you help people from all walks of life, right?
Yes, and from all ages as well, from the nursery school to the nursing home.
Yeah, and one thing in particular, I know we've spoken about this a couple times, your own son, right, when he was wrestling in high school.
Yes, yes, I worked with my wrestlers for many years now, and I worked with my son's team at Blair Academy, where he went to school, and they became the #1 wrestling team, and then I branched off and worked with many other wrestlers over the course of the years. And also I work with all sports in general.
Yeah, so again, you know, ideal performance. It's in all aspects of someone's life, whether it be sports, business, fertility, because, you know, let's face it, you want to make sure that you're able to
It's all a
conceive.
performance.
Yeah, it's all performance. Now, again, we're continuing on with our discussion from, you know, the first time we did one of these sit-downs. Where do you want to pick it up from? Do you tell us a little bit first, before we actually start again, a little bit about what we covered in the first episode?
Well, we covered sort of a short oral history of my life, my early life, and how I developed into the person I am today. And I was influenced by my parents, both my father and my mother, to become a nurse and to become a peak performance coach. And how I, at the age of 10, because there were not very many sports, competitive sports for girls, my father was the director of the Police Athletic League, and he told me there were no competitive sports. So I began my sports career, you might say, as a roller skater. I signed up to be in a citywide roller skating competition, and I tuned up my own equipment, my own roller skates, and I used mental preparation like what I use today for my clients. And I won races. I won the Far Rockaway Championship, the Queen's Championship, and I also placed at the Citywide Championship in Central Park. So those experiences in my life, in my early life, really have influenced my entire life, the work that I've done throughout the years, and also to the point where I could literally come back at one point and help my father, coach my father, when he had a serious health condition, and he didn't think he was able to walk.
Right.
So my father's assistance when I was a young girl, I came back to help him as well.
Yeah, and that's an amazing story in itself. And your skating championship, you're talking about, you know, performing at this level athletically at the age of 10 and doing some of the things you still do today, right? When you work with
when
people.
I work with athletes, yes.
It's an amazing thing. Now, picking up where we left off, what were the circumstances behind your spiritual awakening?
Well, as we discussed at the end of part 1, I had some issues with fertility myself, and I had 3 miscarriages, and I went to a physician, and he told me that I had to take a toxic substance, DES, if I wanted to have a baby full term. And I was very upset with that, knowing that this drug caused birth defects and also cancer in offspring. So I rejected that totally, and I went off on my own and became the mighty mass roller skater once again. And I said, I'm going to do this by myself. And I learned how to use self-hypnosis and meditation, and I made my own mind-body program to help me to have 4 healthy children after the diagnosis of infertility.
Right.
And so after I became a mom, I realized then that that was the spiritual awakening for me as a woman.
Right.
And so that's where I'd like to start off today.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Were you already doing some of this work professionally, or was this all, just within your own mind? You were just doing it by yourself, kind of trial by error?
Well, at first, when I was having these miscarriages, and it was my 4th pregnancy, and I was afraid that I'd have another miscarriage. So I began to learn about what I could do for myself,
right,
and started studying meditation and other techniques. But I did become a hypnotherapist some years later, and that's when the spiritual awakening actually occurred, right after I started my private practice in hypnotherapy. And I had gone to Manhattan for a workshop. It was a 1-week workshop.
Right.
And when I returned home, I was very stressed out because it was this time of the year, and I had 4 children, and they were involved in sports, wrestling, gymnastics. There were dance recitals, piano recitals, graduations, right? And so when I came home from this week's workshop, I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Besides the fact that I was in a dance recital as well, a tap dance recital.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh man, we should have you tap dance. No, I'm kidding.
I do tap dance through life, right? Staying on pace. But at any rate, I was very stressed out. So this was also the time when my father was having paralysis issues. So that added to the pressure that I felt. And so I went to the supermarket and I bought this super duper ginseng tea that was from 3 different countries, one of them being from Russia. And so I decided one afternoon, late afternoon, to make myself a nice cup of tea and sit at the kitchen table and sip this wonderful tea that was supposed to energize me. Well, halfway through the cup of tea, I felt like something was crawling on my back, right? It felt very awkward, and it felt like the Blob from the sci-fi movie in the 1950s. It was just spreading across my back. And I went into the bathroom, and I noticed there was this huge red hive creeping across my back. And I looked in the mirror, and my face was bright red, and the hives were coming all over my body.
Oh, wow.
So I went directly to the emergency room. It was a storefront emergency room, and had treatment there. So they gave me some Benadryl and some epinephrine, and so I thought, okay, I'll wait here a little while and see what happens. So then the outcome of that was moving forward to this position where across the street was the tap dance studio, and I wanted to practice for my recital. So since I felt a little better, I went across the street, sat down in the class. I didn't intend to dance, just to observe.
Right.
And I sat there for the hour's class, and when I stood up, I collapsed on the floor of the dance studio.
Oh, wow.
Now, the dance studio was called In the Spotlight, which seems to be appropriate now, right? Because I collapsed and I went into anaphylactic shock right there in the dance studio.
Holy.
And so what happened was I remember having a near-death experience and really going into this room where there was a big cloud. It was very comfortable. There was a lot of love. And I felt so great there, no responsibility. And I thought I could stay here for the rest of my life, right? So then I started to hear these voices, and I perceived them to be angel voices, angelic voices. And they was telling me, come on to the next room. And there was a door on the far side of that room.
Right.
I was the only one in the room. And I said, wait, what do you mean, go to the next room? That was, to me, like the processing room or something. And so the angelic voices gave me a choice. They said, you can stay or you can go. And right then, I knew that I had to go back to Earth.
Right.
And so I began to tell them, well, what do you mean? I have a mission. I have something I have to accomplish. And I said, I didn't finish my job as I promised. And I pleaded for one more dance, right? And with that, I started to see the faces of my children, my 4 children coming towards me, like one by one, with one child, and they were crying, saying, "Mommy, Mommy, come back," right? And then the last face I saw was my husband's, and he was hysterical. And he said, "You have to come back. I don't know what to do with these children. I don't know how to raise them," right? So with that, what I did was I decided to return to Earth, right? And so what happened was I was on the floor, and I remember the dance instructor really saved my life, because he was pulling on me and pushing on me and banging me against the floor and on my chest. When I opened my eyes, I saw all these little ballet dancers standing around me from the dance studio in the spotlight, right? And they were just looking at me, and I stood up, and I felt very ill, right? I felt just sick to my stomach, and my husband and the dance instructor brought me to the hospital, and all the way there I was vomiting, right, out the window of the car. And I was hospitalized for 4 days on IV Benadryl, IV cortisone. So that was really my spiritual awakening.
Wow. So now, once this whole episode happens, how did you respond to it?
Well, what happened was I saw my life from a totally new perspective, right? I realized that I'm a finite being, and I was really in a position where I could start to value who I was as a mother, as a wife, as a nurse, as a hypnotherapist. And because I was in transition, I was just moving from home to be an entrepreneur with my new practice, my new work. And it's also, as I said, around the time my father was having the challenges. So I decided to just be very confident in myself and to have a sense of humor, right? To just develop this levity. It's like la-di-da, everything's fine, okay, right? And also I applied to Columbia University. I always wanted to get my doctorate.
Right.
So I started school there, and I focused intently on my mission.
And your mission, did that include the fertility enhancement coaching?
Exactly. Well, I had started a fertility enhancement program sometime before, but I added on a new dimension called the fertile body method, which gave more structure to my program. And it was influenced by many different things. First of all, I went to this Fertility Planet marketing exhibition in Manhattan, and there the doctors talked about IVF, and the scientists were there, and they had all these seminars. But I noticed there were some people sitting in the audience who were looking for natural approaches to fertility enhancement, like the photographer who was filming the whole exhibition.
Right.
And also another woman was sitting in the back, and she told me that she had 4 IVF cycles and they were unsuccessful. And she said that I should go to this forum that was being given later on in the month, in September. And that was going to be filmed as a documentary. It was called the Forum for the Silent Sorority. And women, panelists, got up on the stage and talked about their challenges with IVF and how they had failed and how they had miscarriages. And what happened was, one lady said she had 10 cycles and they were unsuccessful. And she was unable to have a baby, but she also had huge bills for this because she spent over $100,000. And on top of that, she had health issues.
Right.
And another lady spoke about her miscarriages, how she had 5 of them, but she never had a baby. So I was really aligned with this woman because of my experiences. And then I thought, well, there's something I can do to help women fare better, like I did, to have these spontaneous pregnancies.
Right. So all this was kind of like your evolution into this metamorphosis of what you're doing today.
That's right. That's right. And actually, when I stood up at that forum at the end, I said to my husband, I'm going to rename my program Metamorphosis and look at it from the perspective of the 4 stages of the butterfly and compare that to the 6 stages of the fertile body method.
Right.
And also, I knew that I could work with women to help them with fertility consciousness, becoming more engaged in their own fertility, and to have better outcomes like I did using mind-body techniques.
Right. Because you had your own challenges, right?
Yes, I had 4 miscarriages in total, and I was able to overcome this by changing my lifestyle, by changing my habits, my supplementation, and also by using the power of my mind.
Right. Now, why do you think there's such a need for what it is that you're doing with fertility?
Well, when you think about it, it's a worldwide challenge, right? There's 7 million women in the U.S. alone who have this diagnosis of infertility. And then it's estimated that 1 in 6 women around the world have this challenge. So I know that 1/3 of these women have no reason that's given, no physical reason for this diagnosis. So to me, that leaves open opportunities for spontaneous pregnancies.
Right.
And so when you think about it, women are returning to more natural approaches to everything. They're drinking water, exercising more. Mm-hmm. And also, IVF is very expensive, so not everybody can afford it. And then there are the issues with philosophy and religion. It's prohibited in the Catholic Church, first of all. And secondly, these medications that you take, they don't know the long-term effects of them. So it can affect your children in the future, like DES, that was used something like 30 years before the doctor recommended it to me.
Right.
So I know that stressors are prevalent in this society, and there's something you can do about it by using the mind power that's within us.
Right. And now what about the negative, because the stress causes all kinds of negative effects, right?
Yes, absolutely. And we've discussed this before on the radio, right? So we have the hypothalamus. I'm going to show a diagram in a minute.
Okay.
But we have the hypothalamus that regulates stress. And if there's a disruption, it disrupts the menstrual cycle. So we have adrenaline that's produced, and it produces stress hormones in the fight or flight response. Also, prolactin is another substance that's produced that inhibits conception, literally. And then when you think about the importance of implantation and embryo transfer into the uterus, stress decreases the circulation to the uterus. So it's beneficial to learn how to use coping strategies.
Right. Now, in terms of that stress, because you experienced that yourself until you kind of, like you said, you did it yourself, and that's what led you to what you've created now, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And scientists are finding out more and more stress is related to infertility, and also when you have long-term infertility, you get very stressed out from that alone, causing depression, suicide, and many other things.
Yeah,
so
anxiety, and you name it, all sorts of things, not only mental but physical as well, right?
That's right. It's physical, it's body, mind, and spirit we're talking about here.
Right.
So I do have a diagram here.
Not a diagram. Let's take a look at that.
In this diagram, you can see at the top is the H for hypothalamus, right? It's in the brain. And there's a substance produced, CRF, that's called corticotropin releasing factor, that influences the pituitary. That's also in the brain. It's the master gland. And then you can see how this affects the ACTH production and the adrenals that are right above the kidney, and how we produce stress hormones that affects the immune system. It suppresses it, causing us to be vulnerable to illnesses. And also, if you go in this direction, it's the fight or flight. The stress hormones directly affects fertility.
Right. So all that, it's almost like the leg bone's connected to the hip bone kind of thing,
That's right. It's all connected. And I'm going to show you in the next diagram as well how this connects to the ovary directly.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Now we're talking ovaries. I got to pay attention here.
Talking ovaries. So this is a sympathetic nerve control of the ovary. And it's mapping out the anatomical nerve connection between the brain and the ovary, right? So we have the hypothalamus once again, that's in the brain.
Which is what you showed us in the first
in the first one. And then here's the stress, and you can see the reaction in the sympathetic nervous system to the paraventricular nucleus, down to the spinal column, and all the way down here, superior ovarian nerve and the ovarian follicle. So there's a direct relationship to the stress here and the effect on the ovary.
Wow. So now, how did everybody kind of figure this out?
Well, people figured it out because there were many scientists over the years worked with like Cannon worked with the fight or flight response, and also Hans Selby worked also with guiding people, showing how stress affects the body. So that's how it came about.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Scientific evidence relating to all this.
Right, and in terms of the work that you do now with people, because again, a lot of people are suffering, like you said, from infertility, they try the IVF, they try the drugs. It's very expensive treatments. You know, people spending tens of thousands of dollars on this stuff and not getting the results they're looking for, or the percentage of which it's successful is very, very small, right?
That's right. And there's something that you can do to help yourself. You can literally use the power of your mind before you start with all these other processes that are expensive and can affect your health.
Right.
So what I use is self-hypnosis. I teach self-hypnosis, cognitive behavioral therapy. And from our conversations on the phone, we talked about how you work with the power of both sides of the brain. Cognitive behavioral therapy relates to the left side of the brain, and hypnosis relates more to the right side of the brain. So the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. So you can use the same techniques that athletes use to mentally rehearse, to prepare yourself for surgery or for procedures that you might need to enhance fertility.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting too, because you know, when you talk about the athletes and the way that whole thing works is, you hear about a lot of times, you know, I know you probably don't spend as much time watching sports as I do. But, you know, when you're watching like an ESPN or something like that, and they do focuses on these, you know, the top athletes, and you hear them in their own words saying, well, you know, I pictured myself making that shot over and over and over again, or, you know, they picture themselves doing things and they practice it, and it's almost like, you know, a little routine they get into. So when they are put in that position, it comes so natural, they're not thinking about it anymore.
That's called mental rehearsal, and you work with the right side of your brain using your senses. So say you want to hit a home run, and you are contemplating performing in a game the next day, but you're sitting home on your bed and you're mentally rehearsing being up at bat. And so, as I said, the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. And also, you're making tracks in your brain. Say you practice this 50 times, so you're making all those tracks in your brain, and the subconscious mind reacts automatically. So now you go into this phase of hypnotic dissociation, and you bypass the critical factor in the conscious mind, and you slide right into that space called the subconscious mind, and you imagine yourself hitting the home run. And the next day, you go to the field, and indeed, you hit a home run. And I've seen this many times.
Yeah, and I think we all see, you know, examples of that, not only in sports, but in other parts of our lives. Again, we're talking with our guest, Dr. Christine Silverstein. She's the director at the Summit Center for Ideal Performance. You can go to her website, fertilebodyhypnosis.com. That's fertilebodyhypnosis.com, or reach out to her directly, 201-760-1600. And it's funny, too, because, you know, not only in sports, but in other parts of your life where you do things unconsciously. You practice, like waking up. Like if you know you got a big test or something
you can wake up automatically.
You set your alarm, and all of a sudden it's like you wake up 2 minutes before the alarm, and you're looking at your clock. It's like, wow.
You have that body sense, absolutely. And you can really prepare yourself. It's the same thing for surgery, for, as I said, to improve your chances of conception. So I want to give you some examples of how I work with imagery, and people think that imagery is just for kids, right?
All right, well, you know what? You brought a few, I guess we're going to call them toys.
That's right. Well, I call them props.
Have some fun. Right, yes,
I call them
exactly.
Props. But people think imagery is just for children. They say, haha, isn't that funny what you use? And that's for a child. But the fact is, the subconscious mind doesn't speak in languages like Japanese or Spanish or English. It speaks in these terms: metaphors, images, symbols, stories, right? And so when I use imagery, I use all of these things. I combine all these things, and the subconscious mind is very playful and childlike, and it's irrational, right? So what's to the conscious or the rational mind, the subconscious mind doesn't relate to that. So I want to give some examples of how I used imagery with sports, and to know that this is for everybody. But my first example is my friend here. He's my coaching assistant. All
right, hold on. Let me back up. What the heck are we dealing with here, Dr.
Okay, well, he wants to wave hello.
Is this for fertility?
No, this is for wrestling. But you can use it for anything, right? I use it for many different things. But his name is the Loose Moose.
What's his name?
The Loose Moose.
Oh, the Loose Moose.
And he's my coaching assistant, right?
All right.
So you can see the Loose Moose has very long legs.
He looks very loose.
Right, he does.
They say.
Absolutely. So how do I use this, you might
Yes,
ask,
I
right?
would like to know. You know what? Not only me, but I'm sure everybody would like to know how loose moose comes into play.
Okay, well, there is a wrestling move called leg lace,
Okay.
right? And you can look it up on YouTube if you're not familiar with it.
Right.
And I just recently looked up John Smith doing it. He does a very nice job.
Who's John Smith?
He's a famous wrestler.
Okay. I thought you were going to say John Cena.
No.
I know who he is.
No. So anyway, because he has long legs, you can imagine yourself wrapping your legs around your opponent, turning your opponent, and scoring or pinning your
Right.
opponent,
Okay.
right? And so that's one thing. But if you should get stuck in this leg lace, you can also imagine yourself undoing it and then wrapping your legs around your opponent and scoring and reversing your opponent.
Now,
So-
do you channel loose moose? Do you have them channel? Is loose moose being channeled like, look, I'm loose moose, I'm loose moose?
Well, absolutely, it's all hypnotic dissociation, right? So when you get into that zone, you're open to positive suggestions and imagery, and this is how you slide into the zone.
Right.
So that's when I introduced the loose moose, right?
So we're not talking about your program. It's not only for infertility. You cover a bunch of different things.
It's for sports. I work with many in many creative ways with my clients,
Right.
even to heal from surgery. So that's an example of my friend, the loose moose.
The loose moose.
And then-
all right. Well, loose moose, we'll see you later.
Yes, yes.
Don't run around the studio
But
once you get hurt.
He's resting over there now. So now I have another picture, and this person you might recognize, right?
That would be Harry Houdini.
That's right, Harry
Yes,
Houdini.
I remember. I remember when I used to go see him perform live. No.
I don't think so, because this picture was taken in 1903, and I think you're younger than that.
Right. Well. You know.
But anyway, I got this picture from the museum where I visited an exhibit.
Did you steal that?
No,
Oh,
it was
okay.
it was something that I bought on a postcard. And so at any rate, it was taken in 1903 of Harry Houdini, and it also says on here July 9th, 1909, when he performed in Bugleton, England.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see he has the handcuffs on
Right.
and the leg cuffs.
And the leg shackles. Yep.
And at this museum exhibit, they had him jumping off the top of a bridge into a river. The
Right.
constable put these chains on him. And then you see him a few seconds later coming out of the water with holding the chains and the handcuffs up in the air.
Right.
Another one that was really impressive, another video that I watched, was Harry Houdini in the straitjacket, right?
Is that Harry?
That's Harry right
Oh
here.
my goodness!
I
It's
got
Finger
this-
Puppet Harry.
I got this at the museum. It's actually a magnet. It says he's
They sold that at the museum.
at the museum at this exhibit, right? It says he has a magnetic personality, right? So at any rate, he's in the straitjacket, and they had the straitjacket at this exhibit, and Harry Houdini would be put in the straitjacket, hung from the top of a building, upside down, and then he'd get out of the straitjacket, and I saw him remove it and just drop it onto the ground. That was part of his entertainment, right? So I also use this with wrestlers or other people who feel trapped on the bottom, because there is a wrestling move, the 3 different positions. One is on bottom, so you have to escape and get a point. So I talk to my clients, and they perceive themselves under hypnotic dissociation as Harry Houdini, the great escape artist.
Now, when you were working with these kids, did they know who Houdini was?
Well, I
at the
explained,
time?
I have the little magnet there, and I explain and talk about it, and then I use imagery. And the funny thing is, because we're talking about hypnotic dissociation, none of the wrestlers actually are the loose moose, or are they actually Houdini, right?
Right.
And I have another thing here that I'm going to demonstrate
my
with
goodness,
a
there's more.
butterfly, right? But so hypnotic dissociation works in this way. You become the symbol. So you become that Houdini. You become the butterfly. You become the loose moose.
No.
And then you can bypass the critical factor and slide right into that zone.
Right. Now
and
is this
score.
is all this imagery, the pictures and the loose moose and Finger Harry over here, is that just for kids?
No, it's for everybody. So I used imagery. I used stories that are from children's books, and physicians. I work with physicians, attorneys, and they relate to it. Because remember, the subconscious mind is childlike. It's playful, and this is how you access it.
Right.
So
Do you use the Swedish Chef for anybody who has trouble cooking good meals?
no,
No?
nope.
No Muppets?
Nope, I don't use that, but I do use butterflies, right?
Oh my goodness, she's got butterflies.
Right? So this I use for fertility enhancement, and I demonstrated this on my YouTube video. But as you can see, I have a butterfly net here and some butterflies. And how I use this with women who have fertility issues is they look at the butterfly and look at all the design and beautiful colors and the symmetry and the markings, and then under hypnotic relaxation, I have them put the butterfly into the net, and then that butterfly becomes them, and they start to think about, well, how come I'm having these challenges with conception?
Right.
What are the issues in my life? What are the traumas, etc.? And then I work through those issues with this hypnotic relaxation and imagery, and then when they're ready to release those obstacles, then they set the butterfly free, right? And there's a little light on this, and so that you can imagine the butterfly on you or flying around you.
It looks like it could be a nice pin or a brooch, and it flashes.
Yes, it flashes, it does everything, right? Well, it's free, is the point that I'm making, right?
Right.
So that's called hypnotic dissociation, and it is playful and childlike, and you have to have a sense of humor.
Well, obviously. Now, when you're working with somebody in terms of fertility with the butterflies, so are they under hypnosis during that time?
Well, there's no such thing as being under hypnosis, like you're under the table. But I guide them. I facilitate the process with progressive muscle relaxation and positive suggestions, and then you get in that space. And after working, after a couple of sessions, you're able to just glide yourself right into it. And then I begin speaking using, I always use sound of music, and also the symbolism and metaphors and stories.
Now, in using all these, do we call them props?
Well, I don't
Do
call
you
them
call them
props.
toys?
No, I call them, here's the loose moose, here's the butterfly. And I have many different things in my office that I use. Stories.
Well, you have even more stuff?
Oh, I have
it's
a
like
whole
a playland.
Yes,
it's like
that's
Great
right.
Adventure in your office, because you are in New Jersey. Now, what about hypnotic disassociation? When does that occur?
Well, as I said, it occurs when you allow yourself to slide into this zone, and there's no judgment there. So the conscious mind will say, I don't know if I can score on that escape, right? I don't know. I think my opponent is stronger.
Right.
I think my opponent, he has this great leg lace move. But there was one funny story where I worked with a wrestler, and he was a high school student, and he was upset because he kept on getting stuck in the bottom position. And finally, I said, okay, so this is what you do in your next competition. And he came back the next week, and he was so excited. He won his match. He escaped from the bottom. And he said, but there's one strange thing that happened. And I said, well, what was that? And he said, I don't know. I stood up, I escaped, I pushed my opponent away, and I looked right in his face, and I said, I am the loose moose.
Oh, geez.
And so he said, I don't know. I never said that before I came here. So I said, oh, it must have been something I said, and we moved on, right? But he was very happy that he won the match.
Now, did you use the loose moose with him, or was it just?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But and he remembered it
subconsciously.
But he didn't. It's not like he went home thinking, "Oh man, that was a lot of fun. Can't wait to see the loose moose again."
No, it just came out during the wrestling match.
Wow. Now,
that's how powerful it is.
Right. So, okay, because nobody's ever said, Finger Harry, got me out. They just went with loose moose?
Well, sometimes it's Houdini. Houdini does the trick.
All right. Well, you know what? It's interesting that you use these. I guess we'll call them aids, because they're really helping you along,
yes.
right? Uh-oh, I just saw you pull something else
Yes,
up.
I have something else.
All right. Now, how do you use a metaphor,
to help myself?
Yeah, to help yourself.
Well, actually, 4 months before I had this near-death experience in the Spotlight Dance Studio, I had an experience where I woke up in the morning and I just wrote this poem, and it was called Can a Cow Hide?
Can a what?
Can a Cow Hide?
Hide, okay.
Hide, okay, H-I-D-E. So this poem, I didn't realize it at the time, but when I was writing the story of it, writing out the poem, it opened up new possibilities for me, because remember, it was the time I started this hypnotherapy practice and my dad was having the challenges. Right. And I was trying to make this transition from being at home as a mom into my new office. And also, I needed to have more confidence in myself. So I wrote this poem, and I didn't realize that I was the cow in the poem named Mary Moo.
That's the cow. She
That's
brought a
the
cow.
That's right.
Along with a moose.
And she wants to introduce herself to you.
Oh, is the cow going to talk?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I don't know if I'm prepared for that. Do we need another microphone in here for the cow? All right.
Well, her name is Mary Moo, right?
Mary Moo?
Yeah, and she wants to know if this is like the best camera angle for her. This is her TV debut, right?
I don't know. You'd have to ask. The crew.
Right. So at any rate, so Mary Moo is a cow who doesn't believe she's a cow. She denies it totally.
Oh, really?
And she would be the first one to say that she's a cowardice, right? And she.
Oh, I see what you did there.
A cowardice. Yes, absolutely.
She's killing us. She's killing us with her cowardness. Get it, cow. Okay.
Okay.
Back to Mary Moo.
So Mary Moo feels like she's being taken advantage of by everybody.
Right.
Nobody really appreciates who she is, or appreciates her milk, or the gifts that she has.
Okay.
So she often bemuses the world. The world.
You did it again.
That's right.
You did it again, Dr. Christine. She bemuses. Get it?
The world won't appreciate me for my worth until milk is so scarce. There is none on earth.
Okay.
So how does she deny herself?
I do not know.
So let's look at how she denies herself. So despite what you may think, I am not a cow. Even though that's not the impression you may have somehow. You may see this blemished spotted coat and think, there's a chance, although remote, that I am a bovine in great need. So why is Mary Moo in great need?
I don't know. Why don't you tell us, Dr. Christine?
So,
why is Mary Moo in such great need?
Well, nobody appreciates her, right? So she wants to be recognized.
I recognize her.
Right? She wants to be recognized who she is.
Okay.
So there are things that are said to her that makes her milk turn sour. You want to hear what they are?
Well, of course. I don't want to be. I don't want to be one of the ones that says something and not realize I'm making her milk sour. I apologize.
Well, she says, I deserve the award Wet Nurse of the Year. But instead, people look at me and sneer.
Mm-hmm.
They say, stop chewing like a cow. Can you imagine the insult somehow? It's enough to make my milk turn sour. But should a cow sit in the corner and cower?
I see what you did there again. You did it to us again. You used cow in a word.
That's right. That's right.
Now, I gotta ask though, Mary, not you, Dr. Christine. You don't say a word. This is a question for Mary. Do you continue to cower?
Oh no. Only pigs wallow in the mud. I hold my head high to chew my cud.
To chew your what?
My cud.
What's cud?
That's what cows chew.
Oh, I did not know.
Right? But am I a coward and not so bold to gain another viewpoint of me to hold? Is there truly some value to what I give? Am I lucky to meet me? Am I happy to live? So there's that question. Can a cow hide?
I don't know. May I ask Mary Moo?
Well, I asked you now, can a cow hide?
Mary Moo, can a cow hide?
I have to admit to you, I have lied. There's one thing that made me see. It might have passed your eyes, but it purified me.
Mm-hmm. What gave Mary Moo that new perspective?
I saw a sign on the barn, a directive, and I looked at my life from a different perspective. It read, all able-bodied males report, chop chop, at 9 a.m. sharp, to be slaughtered. Now, do you think they did as they were ordered?
I don't know. Do you think the males followed the order?
Well, the next day, I counted very few online who would want to be made into beef stew, right? So the words chop meat took on new meaning. I realized right then I wasn't ready for weaning.
I'm beginning to see a pattern here,
That's
Dr.
right.
Christine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about her move over, move.
That's
See,
right.
I can play this game too, damn it.
Well, now Mary Moo begins to look at herself from the outside in, right?
I'm an idiot.
And she discovers something about herself. She can roam the pasture and be free.
Right.
And she has great wealth, right? So she questions, how could I have been in denial? To be me is very much in style. Holy cow, move over. I think I see a 4-leaf clover. And now she begins to feel so happy and lucky to be alive.
Wow. Okay, well, that's good to know. Now, does this add value to her life?
Absolutely. Mary Moo now sees the value of her hormone-free, grade A, organic milk that feeds all the babies in the world. You see, when all the walls are gone from sight, the drudgery of milking just becomes a delight.
Wow. And now I got to ask, is she happy to be a cow?
Yes, she's very happy. She utters, it's so good
You do it again to me.
moo out with glee.
You
These
used another
words,
cow thing.
That's right, these words that identify me. I am a cow. Wow.
All right, now I got to ask. So what is the message behind Mary Moo? What is
Well,
the message here?
we're going to discuss this, right?
Okay.
So you need to see the Mary Moo in you. Now, as I said earlier, I did not see myself in this poem. But now looking back all these years later, I realized I was talking about myself, right? So you have to have an expectant mind and a sense of humor, which I think you got the sense of humor from the poem, and be lighthearted, even
It
with
wasn't
the
the poem. I'll tell you that much. I'm talking to a cow at the end of your hand.
That's right, because you're looking at it from the conscious mind.
Well,
right?
yeah.
Because we're having this conversation. Okay, so we're in the zone now. We're in the zone. And you need to be lighthearted and gain a sense of confidence in yourself. Express who you are and be free with self-expression, like with the Me Too movement, right? And also value who you are as a person and honor who you are and love yourself. And that's very important.
Is that the message? We should wait for our cow, our inner cow to come out?
Well, yes, should you wait for the cows to come home, right? So Mary Moo has this exciting message. She wants to announce that she started a Twitter account, hashtag Mary Moo too, right? And she wants everybody to follow her on Twitter. And she has been reiterating and reiterating, don't wait until the cows come home. Act now. You're not alone.
I get it. Don't wait for the cows to come home.
Exactly.
Wow. So this, and okay, I got to ask. First off, number one, do cows have horns?
Well, probably. I don't know.
That was distracting me the whole time. I thought cows didn't have horns. I thought it was the bulls.
Well, it probably is, but this is.
But this is Mary. She's
Mary
special.
Moo. She's special.
All right. So now, in something like this, and I know we were having fun with it. You know, you recited your poem, which was awesome.
It's a sense of humor,
right,
and levity. But remember, the subconscious mind is very playful, childlike.
And and I think that's where I'm going with this. So when you know, with the younger kids, like, you know, the wrestlers with the loose moves. You know, you bring out the loose moves. I'm sure at first they're probably like, I don't know what's going on here.
No, they fall right into it.
Right.
Absolutely. Because it's giving them freedom. They don't know what to do. They have a lot of pressure from their parents to win. And I give them a technique that's fun, and they're able to score and win.
And now when you're doing something like this with Mary Moo, which I can't believe I'm actually saying this with a straight face. You got me, Dr. Christine. But when you're doing something like this, are you working with somebody, say, with infertility? Is this something that's helpful for them along with the butterflies?
Absolutely, absolutely, because the butterflies then become symbolic for them. And then whenever you see a butterfly, you can feel free and help yourself to balance and to rid yourself of these traumas from the past, and also things that happen that are presenting obstacles for you to be out of balance.
Right. Now, what about, because, you know, I know when you make reference to the skating that you did as a 10-year-old and winning the championships and stuff like that, you know, with the self-talk and the guided imagery and you know, things that you were doing before you even knew what it was, you were already doing. And now you're doing that for everybody else as the director of the Summit Center for Ideal Performance out of Oakland, New Jersey. And again, people, you can reach out to her. She'll do this whole trick for you. 201-760-1600 or fertilebodyhypnosis.com. What about, you know, because a lot of times, yes, you think positive thoughts and positive things, and eventually, you do those routines, you create those habits in your mind, and those translate physically. But also, what about those people that are suffering from, that negative self-talk? How do you get them to, break that? Because like the wrestler you had, for instance, who always went into a match thinking, they're going to get me at the bottom and I won't be able to escape. How do you work with them in terms of breaking that? Are there ways where you can create new pathways?
Yes, absolutely. As you learn how to go into the zone, literally, you can release the negativity. You're not talking with the conscious mind that prevents you from following through, saying, I practice this move, or I want to be in balance with my body. And you just slide into that space.
Right.
And then you also feed yourself from the conscious mind positive suggestions, and I use cognitive behavioral therapy for that, so that you can change your negative thought patterns into positive ones.
Right.
So you say the words, and you say you see the positive pictures, and that guides you along, because you move in the direction of your dominant thoughts and dominant pictures, whether they're to benefit you or not.
Now, explain what the cognitive behavioral therapy is.
Well, it's a matter of looking at what you're saying to yourself and realizing, is that the truth of it, right? Something that, like what's going on with Trump right now, you're questioning, is that the truth of what he's saying? So you might have patterns from childhood and things that you're told. Your grandmother might have told you, oh, it was really hard having children. I had 9 children and it was torture. It was, childbirth is torture. And that could affect you with your fertility years later.
Right.
But you're not aware of it.
Yeah, and I think the same holds true with, things that people pick up when they're children. It gets embedded in your mind.
That's right. And it stays with you because you have no way of judging, is this correct or is this best for me?
Right.
Until you start looking at it.
Right.
And you step outside your skin and you look at yourself from the outside in.
And a lot of times it happens, at such a young age that we don't even remember when it happens. It's like, well, I just react that way. It's
right.
like a natural reaction.
That's the old story of the granddaughter who asked her mom, how come you cut off the end of the ham when you put it in the oven? And the mother said, I don't know, you better ask your grandmother.
Right.
She always did it that way. When the little girl went to the grandmother said, oh, my pan was always too small, so I always cut off the end. Right?
Yeah, she never knew why. But then, of course, now she knows the story, the backstory behind it. Made no sense for what they were dealing with then. It was just an established pattern.
That's right. And you believe it and you don't question it.
Right. Because a lot of times you see that, like you mentioned, some people, oh, this guy was always thinking, oh, it's going to be bad. Or, oh, I'm going to be terrible on this test because I'm terrible at math. Meanwhile, it's all that negative. How do you replace that negative talk? Because I think something like that is so pervasive. And especially, when you're dealing with infertility too. I'm sure those negative thoughts going into it. This is not going to work again. You know what I mean?
Long-term challenges are the hardest to work with because these beliefs are embedded.
Right.
You have this diagnosis of infertility, and that's it. That's what I rebelled against when the doctor told me, take this DES because you're infertile. And I said, what? This doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to figure out what to do.
Right.
But many people just follow along in the same pattern.
And now, what would you say to Mary Moo if she came at you and said, what's all the hullabaloo? I'm an idiot. Look, that's me.
Well, that is your best camera angle.
Oh, she got me. No, but really, if you were to pull this out, when you pull something like this out for someone who may be dealing with infertility, are they a little kind of drawn back?
No, it's just because that's the conscious mind. And then we go into that zone, the creative zone, I call it, and then everything makes sense. Because remember, you communicate with symbols, metaphors, stories, sounds, and images. Right. That's the language of the subconscious mind.
And you did say, it relaxes things.
Yes.
And a big part of that, is relaxing that
relaxation,
stress that comes along
and then
with it,
you're able to focus. Think about that with a sport, right? You want to be able to focus on the ball coming at you 95 miles an hour in the batter's box.
Right. Yeah, well, you're hoping it doesn't go into the batter's box because that's where you're going to be standing.
Well, that's where you're standing, but over the plate, you want to be able to hit a home run.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Again, we've been talking with and having a lively discussion with not only our guest Dr. Christine Silverstein. You see where I'm going with this. How about the cast of characters we had visiting us today on the show? Let's see. Here's Finger Puppet Einstein. No, Harry Houdini.
Harry Houdini.
Little Finger Harry. I'll put him on. Hey, Finger Harry. Yeah, there you go. Look forward to that. Who else did we have? Bring him up.
We had the Loose Moose.
We had Loose Moose.
Yes.
Say hello, Loose.
There he is.
Loose Moose, who can help you get out of any wrestling move or compromising position you might be in.
Exactly.
Wink, wink.
Getting out from bottom, no matter where you are in your life.
Yeah, unless you want to be on the bottom.
Somebody takes you down, you want to be able to get up and take him down.
Right, exactly.
Or her down.
And
I work with female wrestlers as well.
Really? Are there female wrestlers?
Of course.
No, I don't mean like, the Bella Twins and the WWE. I'm talking about like...
There are female wrestlers, more and more. Yes.
Oh, okay. Like in high schools and everything?
High school, college, international.
Okay. All right. Good to know. And then, of course, the star of today's show, you do the honors, because I can't do Mary Moo.
Okay. Well, Mary Moo, she has some philosophy that she wants to share.
Oh, she does. Right. Oh my goodness.
She has some. This is her
holy moly.
This is her new photo, right? Her new photo, and this is a photo op for her.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
So you see this raffia. She loves this, so it's really hard to keep this intact because she loves to eat it, right? But notice she's looking right at us, and she's drinking a pure moo milk, right?
Oh, isn't that a little incestuous?
Well, I don't know. It's just a product that she produces. And so to all the women out there listening, she wants to know if you got milk, right? And all the gifts and talents. And she wants you to flaunt it.
All right. So there you have it. Straight from the cow's udder.
That's right.
You get it?
Yes.
I went and did what you did.
You're just reiterating.
Right.
That's what you're doing.
I'm utterly ridiculous, aren't I?
Yes.
Hey, now, as we always do with Dr. Christine, on the radio shows that we do together, and I think we did it last time here on TV as well, you always like to end with an inspirational quote. Is there anyone in particular or any inspirational quote you have for us today?
Yes, it's from Hillel, and he said, he's a famous philosopher, right?
Okay.
So he said, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? If I am for my own self only, what am I? And if not now, when?
Right.
So it goes along with Mary Moo to say, act now, you're not alone.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a big takeaway, especially from the work that you do. Again, you help people, in all different types of areas in their lives, especially with the infertility. Again, that is such a big thing with all the stresses that are,
That's
women
right.
endure.
It's a very unique program to deal with the underlying causes, the underlying reasons, the long-held beliefs that are negative that will help you to move in the opposite direction of success.
Right.
So you need to just step back and look at your life, what you're doing, the stresses, and rebalance your body.
Yeah, and don't cower in the corner. grab life by the horns, as they say. Grab life by the horns and take control. And of course, our guest, Dr. Christine Silverstein, can help you do that. Again, she's the director at the Summit Center for Ideal Performance. This is the strangest show I've ever done, and I thank you for that, Dr. Christine.
It's the most delightful when the drudgery when it's gone from sight, right?
Exactly. Who knew this would be happening? Who moved? Get it? See what I did there? I'm an idiot. Again, she is the director at the Summit Center for Ideal Performance. fertilebodyhypnosis.com is her website. You can reach out to her directly, of course. You can phone her, 201-760-1600. She's the only one that's going to pick up the phone, not Mary, so you won't have to deal with that. But definitely reach out to her. Again, Dr. Christine, based out of Oakland, New Jersey, Center for Ideal Performance. She's the director. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it. And thank you for watching on All Business Media TV. I think it's playtime now. Are we going to wrestle the moose with the cow, or what's going on?
Well, I think that the idea is just to balance yourself out, to know who you are, and to know who you are, Rick, as well. You have a good sense of humor.